for Black women, especially high earning Black women. One, because it's almost like when we're not high earning, we know we have to get out here and get it. We know we have to go get it when we're not high earning. But when we are high earning, it's almost like you have this false sense of safety. Get to a point like I got to, where they're realizing that this job is more like golden handcuffs. And so you want to stay in it, but you want to stay in it and do it because you want to, not because you have to. Because
in the back of your head, though, I can leave whenever you want to. You flow different.
Yeah, right? For sure.
When something feels like I have to be here, it feels like a weight. When something feels like I choose to be here, you flow. Welcome to the Balance to Excellence Show. I am Dr. Judy Wright. If you are here with us, thank you so much. Please like, comment, and share with someone you know can benefit, or several ones you know can benefit. If this is your first time, welcome. And if you've been here before, welcome back. Today, I am super excited because I have with me today Dr. Dayia Cooper. And I'm telling you, it's going to be a treat. I have known Dr. Dayia for a while. And so this is going to be a great conversation, but let me tell you a little bit about her, right? She is a transformative figure in both medicine and real estate. She's originally from New Jersey. She was raised in a small town in Georgia. She now lives in Baltimore. So Dr. Dayia, she's been around, she's comfortable, you know. She has spent over a decade as an educator and an emergency medicine physician at teaching hospitals. But in 2022, she made the decision to leave her multi-six-figure career in medicine to pursue her passion for coaching. And let me tell you something. She coaches mainly in real estate, but not really. Like it goes so much deeper than that, right? Because Dr. Dayia is a physician at heart. So she wants to know that you are well and your mindset is well to, boldly go on the journey of real estate. So within her first year of leaving her multi-six-figure job to do coaching and real estate full time, she generated over $200,000 in revenue. So now, as a creative real estate investor, a landlord, a public speaker, she is dedicated to empowering women of color, especially Black women, through education, because she's an educator, and community building. She is the founder of SisterDocs and REI, which is how I first met her, which is a Facebook community, and she connects nearly 800 Black female physicians, dentists, and pharmacists interested in real estate investing. Through her coaching program, Dr. Dayia's Dynasty League, she helps clients accelerate their learning and achieve financial success in their service-based businesses or real estate portfolios. And we're excited to learn more about her journey, how she got here, and what it has done for her and her balance. So, Dr. Dayia, thank you so much for being on. You know I'm excited. We're going to try not to cut up, okay?
I'll try to be good. Thank you so much, Dr. Judy, for such a warm welcome. I'm like, oh, you're talking about me? Is that me? Yeah, I'm so happy to be here on Balance to Excellence. And I love that because you definitely embody balance to excellence. So I'm just blessed to be here and blessed to know you and be in your circle. So
thank you so much. Thank you so much. So that was you. That was all you, girl. That was you. And so can you share your journey? Because like I said, you started in New Jersey, you grew up in the South, now you're in what we call the in-between. right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. Well,
I
I
didn't know
never
what
know
to
when to start when people ask me that, Dr. Judy, but
say.
maybe I'll start at the beginning because I don't necessarily share that a lot
Mhm.
when I'm on platforms, but for some reason the Holy Spirit is telling me to share that here. So I'm gonna be obedient to the Spirit.
Mhm.
So yeah, I was raised in a little one traffic light town in Georgia, in Southeast Georgia, middle of nowhere. To this day, is only one traffic light in the town. But I was born
Oh,
a
wow.
Jersey girl before I turned a Georgia peach. A lot of people don't realize that because I like to embody my Southern Belle persona. But yeah, it started because I actually a product of like drug epidemic of the 80s in a lot of those northern cities, and so both of my parents suffered from substance abuse. And actually, I before I was even born, my father was gone. He passed before I was even born. So while I was still in the womb, and then even subsequent to that, because my mom had such like depression from that loss, she fell even deeper into substance abuse. And so ultimately, I was sent, we were sent down south for her to clean up, and she never stayed very stable. So I ultimately was raised by my great grandmother in Georgia. So I often don't share that a lot, but that was the beginning, like from the beginning of my life, that was the start. So from the beginning, not having the most ideal situation, but being blessed that I actually had family members who could take that role. And that's why I have such an old soul now, from being raised by my great grandmother. And then from there, I just was always a little nerd and enjoyed school, enjoyed science, and went straight through medical school, fellowship, residency, a glutton for punishment. I'm double board certified. I did a dual residency in emergency medicine and internal medicine, and then went on to do a fellowship after that, a 1 year fellowship in clinical simulation, where I basically, was a fellow in education, but simulation was the modality of education. And then ultimately went to work in academic emergency medicine at teaching hospitals. And so that was my career, and I enjoyed it, love taking care of patients. But then there was this one thing that happened. You may have heard of it. It was called the pandemic. And
I think I did.
yeah, you may have heard about it. And so that changed everything for me. So with the pandemic, it was like my eyes were open to all of the inefficiencies and just all the problems with healthcare, especially emergency medicine, healthcare, academic medicine. And I was already kind of like tired, worn out, burnt out just from working through the pandemic, like most healthcare workers and frontline workers were. But it was just extra inefficiencies that were brought out from being in a quote unquote inner city ER, as well as a ER that was attached to a school of medicine. So not only having clinical responsibilities, but teaching responsibilities. And it was just a lot of work without a lot of support. And because of that, I kind of just had like a, quote unquote, come to Jesus moment, and just sat and reflected one day. And I was like, man, um, the the job I signed up for, this doesn't resemble this anymore. It's not resembling what I signed up for, and something has got to give. I was feeling exhausted, unsupported, underappreciated. I was having physical symptoms. I was having daily headaches at that time for months at a time, like literally nonstop. Go to sleep with a headache, wake up with a
Mm.
headache, and it just hit me one day. I was like, well, my car is paid off. My home, I live for free because I had been a savvy investor. So I was living for free. My rental income was paying for all of my mortgage plus, and I was believing God for loan forgiveness. And so I was like, those are my three biggest expenses. With my rental income, I've never taken it as real income. So if I take that, maybe add a couple $1,000s to it, I can live the same lifestyle or pretty similar lifestyle. And so 3 days later, I resigned.
Oh, wow. 3 days.
Days. Yes.
Wow. I don't think I realized
It was
that
just
the
that. It was
decision was
just,
that
I just
quick.
had a moment. I thought about it. I just took this inventory of my life, my situation. I was just like, it's this dream, this American dream, this, this idea of my calling, my vocation in life, um, is not feeling dreamy anymore.
Right. Right. No, I can understand that. And first of all, let me just say thank you so much for listening to the Holy Spirit and being willing to share. Because even in that story, I don't get the impression. I've actually heard people sometimes say that, well, you had all of these things afforded to you, and that's not that's not always the case,
Mm-mm.
and so thank you for sharing that with us. But even as you were going along, what I heard was what a lot of physicians and nurses and other medical professionals experience, which was they were tired, and then a pandemic hit
On top
that
of
said,
that.
pull up more,
Yes,
right?
yes.
And
Yep.
and and the God's honest truth is they tried with their whole heart. They said, we're here. Um, but I think what people had to start realizing, and some people did, was that they're human,
Yes.
right? And sometimes even the physicians in particular don't remember that they're human,
Oh,
right?
talk about it, Dr. Judy. Talk about it.
They
Yeah.
don't remember
It's
that they themselves are human.
yes. We physicians have bought into the idea of altruism and almost like your calling, because something is a calling. um there are so many unspoken things, unwritten rules that go along with a vocation or a calling, i.e., that you can't make a lot of money for, or that you shouldn't have balance in your life because of it. Just because you are walking in your calling does not mean that you don't deserve to get paid for it, or you don't deserve to have time off, or you don't deserve to be selfish sometimes.
You out here preaching, because I'm telling, I have said that. I think I even posted that one day last year. I'm like, your calling is holding you back, right? Because just the
Oh,
idea that when they say it's a calling, it's almost because what's one of the first questions they ask you?
why do you want
What
to
is
be a
it that you
doctor?
would do for free?
Right. Yeah.
Even in that question, right?
Yeah. Oh, that's good,
It's a,
Dr. Judy.
what is it that you would do for free, right? Because
Good.
that is like your calling, but then that sticks with you.
Yes, that's
Well, I
good.
should even be willing to do it for free,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it's like, ooh, woo, 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 because them
Right.
groceries aren't free.
Right.
That rent or mortgage is not free. That
Yes.
the heat,
Yes.
the electricity, and the gas not free. Like
Yes.
those clothes you
Yes.
gotta. So it's like the words can put your mind in a mindset where you're like
Mhm.
just accepting and
It's
less,
subliminal
and
messaging. It's
it
subliminal
is.
messaging.
It is, and it is one of the things that even if it's unspoken directly, it is one of the things we kind of learn in medical school. You're just supposed to go out there and help people get well,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
You're not well. Heal thyself.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. So to hear you say that and to hear you take stock, but the other thing that I heard was there was preparation there all along.
Yeah. And the funny thing is, Dr. Judy, I took an inventory that day. That was the first time I actually took an inventory of my life and the resources that I had, what was available to me, what my options were. Um, And I don't know if I'm gonna be honest, because I don't ever want to like be out here flexing, on people's shows like, oh yes, I just had this grand master plan.
Flex, child,
Just had
flex.
this grand plan. No, to be honest, I didn't even know that I had was prepared. I didn't know that I had prepared. A lot of people say, "Oh my God, you were so courageous, that you're so brave to make that step." And I was like, "No, I wish I could say I was. We're not going to be out here flexing." I was not brave or courageous. I was tired and woe out, as we say down south.
Whoa, wow.
And I wasn't the best person to be taking care of people. I wasn't my best self. I wasn't my normal jovial Kiki making jokes in the ER, Dr. Dayia. I was the person who, when I would pull up to the parking deck and I would have to sit in my car and give myself a pep talk to go inside and tell myself, oh, you can do anything for 8 hours. You can do anything for 10 hours. You got this. You got this. That wasn't normal. That was a sign.
So let me tell you why I think I call you prepared.
Okay.
Because I heard everything you said, and I get it. You weren't doing it as a this is for the moment that I decide I'm jumping on out and
Yeah.
getting out of here. It wasn't that. Even though I do believe that something in you says what we all say, right? We got to invest, right? So we know unless we work for like the government, the VA system, there
Hmm.
are no pensions for us.
Yeah.
There are no,
Yeah.
right. So somewhere in the back of your head. But let me tell you, you know, you did do the thing that gave you joy,
Yes. Yes.
right? Anybody that works with you can see just the inner workings of how we gonna do this and how we gonna do this creatively, and you get joy. And
I
so
love it. I love it.
in being somebody who is double boarded, who was did a fellowship, we're with a teaching institution and a well-known one, and doing emergency medicine and teaching and everything that goes with academia because I've been there. um, um, you still set aside time for something that gave you joy
I'm glad you picked up on that, Judy.
and made you money, because I tell people all the time, sometimes you be tired and you're like, how could I pick up anything else? But
Yes.
sometimes it's the thing that gives you joy, that
Yes.
gives you energy that the other stuff may not have been giving you the energy. But
Hmm.
this thing, you walk into it tired and all of a sudden you're like, bing.
Touche, 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 touche. Yeah, you're absolutely right, and I'm glad you picked up on that because it reminded me. I kind of did prepare. I'll tell you. I'll backtrack to a past story.
Mhm,
So when I first walked into my big girl job role, I
mhm,
finished my 5-year residency. I finished my 1-year fellowship, and I was like, okay, now I'm in my true attending job, although I had worked as an attending when I was a fellow as well. But
mhm,
um, moved to my new city, worked in my new attending job. So um, you can probably imagine you've probably been in similar situations yourself. So I'm sitting in this like office room, like this large kind of conference room, um, in the administrative offices of the School of Medicine. And I'm sitting in that room with a group of other new doctors or newly promoted doctors as we're starting new roles. And we're getting spoken to by a benefit specialist. So I'm in benefits orientation, where I'm learning about my benefits. And so they were telling me, you 401ks, 403bs. They were also talking about, well, this academics, you're going to have a academic designation. So you could follow the tenure track as well. And they were breaking that down. They were like, well, yeah, in the tenure track, you just work for 20 years and you're vested. And I'm just like, I had a visceral response in my body that day, all those years ago, where 20 years. I don't know why it hit me so hard that day, Dr. Judy, because
there's something about those words, those
yes,
numbers, those.
yes, 20 years. And I had been in academics. Obviously, was in school forever. So I've seen plenty of academic doctors and knew they were on that 10-year path. And, they were going to work for 20 years and they would get vested and retire and, get their state pensions, because that was a state run institution that I
Mhm,
worked for
mhm.
as well. So it shouldn't have been like a surprise to me. But for some reason, when they was someone speaking directly to me saying that,
Yeah, link your name to it.
oh, no,
Link
no,
your
ma'am, give me the other option. I won't be here in 20 years. So even then, that was a little glimmer of, I knew that it wasn't going to be a 20-year career. So just that moment. And then another moment around that same time, when I was learning the specific nuances of the department, they were telling me about filling out timesheets. And again, this is a state run institution. So here you have to fill out a state timesheet. And again, I don't know why all of a sudden it was just like this visceral response, but something was like, timesheet, timesheet. I have to. You mean to tell me I've been in school about 30 years straight, going all the way from kindergarten, grade school, middle school, high school,
doing what you're supposed
college,
to do.
med school, residency, fellowship. I mean,
All
literally
these
no
letters after
breaks.
your name.
All these letters, and you tell me I have to give you an account of my time hour by hour. And I was like, what part of the game is this? And that day, that was around the same time of this benefits orientation. And I knew then, I was like, nah. I remember, I'll never forget that week. I started thinking to myself, okay, I have this one property that I bought a couple years ago. I rented it out. I'm making money. I need to start finding some other streams of income, or finding a stream of income that I can have some other income coming in, because it hit me that day with that timesheet conversation that, man, I'm just an employee. They had, kind of just talked to us consciously, subconsciously, the messaging that we get coming, growing up and just living in America and American society about the prestige of being a doctor. But it was that day when we were talking about the timesheet that it hit me that, okay, I'm just an employee though. I'm an employee. And so that was the day that I was like, you know what? I'm going to do more of this real estate investing on purpose. And so that's when I started looking for help and looking for insight to learn more how to buy property with intentionality. Because before that, I had owned a property, still did, was renting it out, but it was more of an accidental landlord situation.
Got it. Got it. And so the thing for me, first of all, that story was funny. It's you know what that it's something about those numbers. You're like, nah, I don't think I'm gonna make it.
I
Oh,
knew then. I knew then. And it just hit me all of a sudden. It wasn't like I planned that. Like I was like, I just knew that I was going to take this track instead of the 10 track. It was just when she said it in that moment, I was just like, literally something, it like almost hit me. Like I felt a physical response to her saying it.
yes, yes, yes. I get you. The thing that strikes me is just going back to the joy that it gives you. And if anybody was paying attention, they could see how your face lit up when you start to talk about it. Um, when I talk to people about balance, that's the kind of thing I'm talking about. I'm not talking about here's your work life, here's work, and then here's life, and here's the scales. I'm not talking about that. There's so much that goes into your life, and that's why I always say work is just a part of life
Come
itself,
on.
right?
Come on.
And so, but there's a financial part to your life. There's a familiar part. There's a romantic part. There
Yes.
is a creative passion part. And this
Yes.
was a passion project,
Yes.
right? That was
Mm-hmm.
doing some things on the
Yes.
side
Yes.
until you said, I'm really going to
Yeah.
put my fullness
Mm-hmm.
into this here because I can see down the line how this can help me. And
Yeah.
so I really appreciate understanding how you got even motivated to go all in
It was
on
that first month. That first
yeah.
month of orientation that
Like
motivated me to go.
it set the trajectory. They said 20 years. They attached it to my name. They
Yes. Yes.
So I want to move on to, and this is going to be, I know that, this happens to be 2 days after the election.
Hmm.
It's been a very heavy 2 days for some people. For some, it's been emotional all around. Like,
Yes.
for some people they're elated. They're, and for some people they're not. Some people
Yes.
are sad. Some people are angry. Some people are devastated.
Mm.
Um, and this was going to happen either way,
Yes.
no matter who won, right?
Yeah.
Um, with your coaching business, and I say you're a coach, like you're a coach. This is not just we talking real estate. You are a
Yeah.
coach.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
So if you have to pull up on somebody, just to tell the story, we were
It's
at a
not safe. It's
conference
not safe
together.
when I'm around. Be careful. It's not safe when I'm
It's not. We were at
around.
a conference together. I thought I looked fine. She walked over to me and said, "What's going on?" I'm like, "What are you talking about?" She's like, "What's going on?" Because she out here being a whole empath, right? Like,
Yeah,
so,
I could pick it up.
and there
Yeah.
there was something going on, and I'm like, "We're not even on the same side of the room, girl. Like, what just drew you all the way across the room to me? Because it's not like you were across the room looking at my face." And so, you were like, just if you need to talk or whatever have you. So you're like a coach. And even as we were doing real estate coaching, there were a couple of times where I was like, can we start off not talking about real estate because something is bothering my spirit and it is affecting, and in some ways it was about the real estate, but not directly about the real estate. And so we would do that. And sometimes that would be the coaching session, right? So,
But it all
you're a
matters.
coach.
It all goes together though, Dr.
It
Judy.
all because it's mindset.
Yeah,
It is
when it comes
mindset.
to whether it's someone maybe who's getting career coached or business coached like you were, real estate was the business.
Hmm.
No matter what it is, if you have a good coach, they understand that the the coaching experience is not just about the information, the technical information. The experience is around the whole person, because if
Yeah,
there are distractions, if that person's not feeling safe, if they have issues with, like, I call it creating safety for creation. So
yeah,
sometimes people have financial unsafety, sometimes people have like too much on their cognitive plate, right? Like increased cognitive load, decision fatigue. All those things play a role in getting you to your outcome, whatever transformation or outcome that you're working towards in your coaching program. And so if you don't address those things, then it's silly to talk about like a technical matter.
I agree. I started off talking about, you know, with the selection, and either way, their emotions were going to be high, and they were going to be high in different ways, no matter which way this election went. Um, but to be real and honest, um, black women are feeling the way. And one of the things that I notice is that you do work with women. You did start off working with doctors, um, and particularly black doctors, and whether that's what you set out to do or that's how it grew organically, because hello, representation matters. Um, you know, what geared you toward this empowerment of black women in real estate?
Oh, yes. So it was a little bit of both,
Mhm.
actually. One, because like you said, um, I'm just kind of around a lot of doctors, right? I'm a physician, so I'm around a lot of other physicians and other doctors of different specialties and tech and modalities. So, and one thing about me, I'm all about identity. Identity is so important when it comes to balance, when it comes to your call, like everything, like how you
Mhm.
move about in this world is like how you
Yes,
identify. And so for me, I think one reason or the main reason people are successful at whatever they do is because they identify with that thing. Because I identified as an investor, I made it a part of my whole life, right? So I could be talking to someone who is just a colleague. They're not interested in investing, but I'm sharing with them what was important in my life. And that was investing. And so then they were like, oh, that's interesting. Tell me more. And then it was supernaturally, like not supernaturally, but it would naturally just turn into like, oh, okay, maybe we could work together. And then that's how I started working with a lot of Black doctors and other Black women doctors. Just those are the people I was interacting with, just because that's what happens when you are a doctor. You
Yeah.
interact with a lot of other doctors. But at the same time, the more I built community with other like-minded people, other Black women doctors, the more work I did in real estate networking and things like that, I realized I actually loved purposely curating spaces for Black women, especially high-earning Black women. One, because it's almost like when we're not high earning, we know we have to get out here and get it. We know we have to go get it when we're not high earning. But when we are high earning, it's almost like you have this false sense of safety.
Mm, mm, mm,
Because it's
mm.
so funny. A lot of times people are like, oh my gosh, you do all that real estate stuff. Isn't that so risky? And I'm like, sis, being an employee is risky. Being an employee is risky.
If I had a napkin,
So that's
I would.
another reason why when I really thought about it and the more I worked with people, I was like, no, I really want to focus in on high earning Black women, because that was one point that really stuck with me. I'm like, I want them to know what's available to them. I want them to have options, because they may get to a point like I got to, where they're realizing that this job is more like golden handcuffs. And so you want to stay in it, but you want to stay in it and do it because you want to, not because you have to, because now you're bringing a different energy to your role and your calling.
And thank you for saying that, right? Thank you so much for saying that, because there's literally nothing wrong with being an employee.
No.
There's nothing. I'm still an employee. There's nothing wrong with being an employee.
Yes.
But there is a shift when you know, right? So some people are going to leave being an employee. That's just the way it is. But some people don't want to leave that, and there's nothing wrong with that. But there's a shift in your brain when you know, I can leave anytime I want to. See, that shift happened for you when you sat down and said, and in 3 days. When you know in the back of your head, though, I can leave whenever you want to, you flow different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah,
right?
for sure.
When something feels like I have to be here, it feels like a weight.
Mm-hmm.
When something feels like I choose to be here, you flow different. I
And
always tell
that's
people
in
that.
service. That option, just having the option, just having options, is not only in service to you as the employee, but it's in service to the people that you serve in your employment.
Absolutely, 100%. It's so much easier to have job satisfaction. You know what it's like? It's like the old adage where they say the best time to look for a job is when you have a job. Because when you lost a job and now you're desperately looking for a job, that don't feel so good.
Scarcity, yeah.
Right? But when you already have a job and I'm just keeping my options open, I'm looking, that's a different feeling altogether.
Yes. And that is why I decided, after it just kind of happened naturally, but as I was in it and building community and building SisterDocs and REI and going to networking events and then starting consulting and then going into coaching, I purposely decided, I want to continue to focus. It doesn't even have to be doctors, but just high earning women. One, so that they are seeing what's available to them as far as options. And two, they are creating options for themselves before they get to the point where they may end up feeling like they're wearing golden handcuffs. Secondly, another reason why I focus on people of color, especially Black women, and helping them to become owners of businesses and property, is because how amazing would this world be if we had more people of color, especially women, especially Black women, to be owners. If we had more Black women out here being the person on the block that is making sure that we're not only buying properly, but we're doing it in an ethical way so people don't get displaced from their communities. How different would it be if we had more women who
Yeah.
were landlords, who could show their daughters that women could be landlords as well? How different would it be when more women have options where they can own property, own assets? How different will they be able to serve their families, their different community responsibilities? How much better would they be able to serve when they're not working and exhausted and burnt out working because they have to instead of working because they want to? How different would
They
our
want to.
communities be? So that's why it's actually my mission that I'm going to create 1,000, and I'm well on my way to creating 1,000 Black women owners over the next 5 years. That is my mission.
That's your mission. That's your mission. And it's nothing like having a mission and a passion for what you do. There's nothing like it. That is you, and I can say that wholeheartedly. That is you acting in a realm of excellence. I knew you when you were an emergency physician, but I don't know you as an emergency physician, and I'm sure you were excellent at what you did then.
And I am.
Because that's what we learned.
The funny thing is,
That's what we
Dr.
learned to
Judy,
be.
I actually we're in a new month now, so it's been more than a month now. I was going to say last month
Mhm.
I actually started picking up locum shifts for the first time in about 2 years from seeing patients. I actually started back seeing patients again. Now, I only do it 2 to 3 times a month. I was afraid to let go of my license. I was just like, man, because again, it goes back to that identity.
And what you said before, the safety.
Yes, the safety, exactly. So I
The
was just like, I
safety,
don't know
yes.
if I'm mentally, emotionally ready to not be able to maintain my certifications and licenses, because we as physicians, we can't just keep certifications. We actually have to work to keep them, right? And
Mhm.
pass boards. So, and one of my old bosses reached out to me and was like, hey, I know you're semi-retired, but we need some help here. So I was like, oh, that's perfect timing, because I've been threatening to go pick up shifts. And the experience has been so cool because that was the first time ever that I ever worked because I wanted to, not because I had to.
And I was about to say, why didn't I know this? Because we just had this whole conversation, and here you
Yes.
are. Because I
Yes.
want to say, how does that feel?
The energy
Because
is so different. The energy is so different, especially when you're comparing it to the energy of the time that I left medicine 2 years ago. Because
Mhm.
at that time I was not only, leaving the space, but I was burnt out and, having physical symptoms of burnout as well.
Yeah.
So even comparing it to pre-burnout, the energy is different. It's just like, no one can upset me. I'm just there, just enjoying myself. I'm not going to let anybody go past my personal boundaries of professionalism that I've created for myself. I decide what's professional for me. And before, and when I worked as a actual employee instead of like a 1099 contractor, sometimes consciously and subconsciously, people could push you past your personal boundaries, staying late, doing work after work, picking up too many patients, almost not operating, but practicing borderline dangerous way where you're seeing too many people at one time, caring so
But
and
it's
this
also what we allow, right? Because
exactly
it's
exactly
what we allow, and sometimes, not sometimes, many times, it's easy to feel like, but we're employed.
Mhm.
We have to,
Mhm.
which, when I talk to people, you have more control than
Then
you
you think,
realize.
oh yes,
I am,
oh yes,
I used to be quick, and don't get twisted. I've gotten pushed past my boundaries before too, but I used to be quick to tell people, this is my license.
yeah, yeah,
You
absolutely,
don't have a license to lose. This is
absolutely,
my life.
absolutely, yeah. And I will say I'm glad that I learned that for myself even before I got into burnt, like to that phase of my
Hmm.
life where I was burnt out. I had already created a rule for myself about what I decided to say, okay, this is what's professional
Mm-hmm.
for me. Forget what these people are saying
Yeah.
or mumbling under their breath or whatever. For instance,
Mm-hmm.
just like in the charting, a lot of people have issues where they will take their charting, they will spend hours after their shift is up or after their workday charting and documenting on what happened that day, or or the last few days with their patient care. And oftentimes people take that home. So I made a rule years ago. This is well before I had the COVID burnout. That for me, my rule is going to be one patient, one note, one patient, one note. I would not be sitting in anyone's ER picking up multiple patients. And then now all of a sudden hours have passed by and I've written no notes. And now I'm
And you have to sit
staying
down and recall.
hours after work or taking it home and spending hours at home instead of focusing on my home life, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I decided that for me, professionalism was going to be one patient, one note. And then there were instances where, because of that, right, I would have to leave a patient's room, sit down, spend 5 to 7 minutes writing a note, but there may be other people waiting to be seen. I decided to be okay with people looking at me funny, like, why is she not picking up that new person who's waiting? Because I'm going to take 5 to 7 minutes to write this note. And I decided to be
That's
okay
right.
with that. So I created my own value, my own
Right.
measure of professionalism. And I think that is important for people to find balance in any aspect of their life. They need to decide what they feel is success, and they need to decide what they feel, what their own measure of value is, and then they can make decisions and set boundaries from there.
And this is the thing, because that boundary setting that you did, I always tell people, some people will look at you like, why aren't you doing this? Or they'll take it in a negative sort of
Mm-hmm.
way. It is
Mm-hmm.
not to be negative to anybody.
Mm-hmm.
It is a way to protect yourself, and you deserve the
And it
protection.
makes
Protect
you
yourself,
better for the people
protect your
you're
values.
serving.
Yes, protect yourself, protect your values, protect your goals, and in this case, even protect your patients, right? Like, you're going to run and take all of these patients at once. It takes so much longer to try to recall later to write that note. Ask me how I know, right? So, you know, that became my thing too. And if you thought I was slow, and sometimes people did, it is what it is. I would rather do that and, do it correctly and care for this person correctly. And actually, the sitting down and writing is a break between, and a good transition. So now I can roll into seeing the other patient
Yes.
fully
Yes.
engaged and
Yes.
caring for that
Yes.
other patient,
Yes. It's
right?
better. It's better for
So,
the patients.
that's why boundaries are so important. I'm glad that you eventually said, yeah, no, I'm gonna do it, and I'm gonna be honest with you, right? Because you are wonderfully child free.
Praise God.
Some people would look at that and say, well, what does she have to do at home? Be home.
Mind my business.
And when she mind her business, be home, and when she home, she does not want to be writing notes. She
And
does not
it will
want to
not.
be checking labs. She does not want to
Will not be
be
doing it.
doing any of those things. And that's fine, because I know when I go home, I don't want to do that. I don't want to check labs. I don't want
Uh-uh.
to do that. And I've been there before. And I had to
Me
stop it
too.
too,
Me
because
too. I had to stop it.
I had to stop it too.
Yeah.
So, thank you for that, because I think, and what I drew from that most of all was when you said the false sense of safety, because there is. Look, let's just face it, there is a false sense of safety, but things used to look different 30, 40 years ago, where you knew you could sit in a job for 10, 20, 30 years, and you'd be in that job, if that's what you wanted to do.
Yeah.
That's not
Yeah.
necessarily the case now,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? So sometimes employed is a false sense of security. It doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with it. It means make sure you have things set up correctly on the back end. If it's that you're investing in your 401k, full out, then make sure you're doing that. If it's that you're making investments somewhere else, make sure you're doing that. If it's because you know you want to retire in the place that your family's originally from, start putting money to do that. Whatever it
Exactly.
is,
Exactly.
you
Yeah.
know, have a plan of action.
Yeah. Options. Create options for yourself.
Create options for yourself. So,
Mhm.
what is one key message that you share with your clients to encourage, empower them?
Yeah. So, so many different messages that I share with my people. So it's like, where do I start? I always tell people to really get clear on what they want. And
Mm-hmm.
I realize that is hard for people. Sometimes people are like, of course, like that's so straightforward. But when you really think about it, and if you really talk to your people about it, a lot of people don't even know what they want. At least the people in my circles,
Yeah.
high income earners, um, and I don't think that's probably just something that you find or issue that you find with high income earners. I'm sure that's an issue you find with everyone, but just the people that I've talked to and had consultations with, I always say start with any action or any goal that you want to pursue. Start with first, what do you want? What do you desire? What do you envision your life looking like 2 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now? And most people will give me a vague response. It's like, I just want to be happy, free, on my way to retirement. And I push people. I'm like, no, get granular. Like, where are you waking up? Who are you with? Where are you located? What are you even in this? Are you waking up in this country? Like, get super granular, get detailed. And what I found is a lot of people, one, feel uncomfortable with that exercise. Two, they haven't allowed themselves the freedom to even think or dream. And I've realized a lot of that is one, because they haven't allowed themselves, but two, they've been so busy in every other aspect of their life that they have no cognitive ability. Like they have so much decision fatigue, they don't have
Oh,
the cognitive safety to even think or dream or envision. Once they have even just like a little mini break, just think about it. Like when people go on vacation and they start getting creative and they're like, oh, an idea came to me. So many people are moving so busily that they don't even have the ability to take a step and a break and envision and dream and envision what their life will look like in the future. So I always tell people, be very clear on what you want. And when you are thinking about what you want, just think about what you want. Like, don't put it in the frame of what you think is realistic.
yeah. Because that's hard.
Because when I
That's
ask people
hard.
what they want, then they start giving me, when they do give me answers, if they can think about the answers, they start giving me answers of, well, it's probably likely that I'll be able. No, I didn't ask you about likely. I said, what did you want? What
That's
did you
good.
want? Because you can get to whatever you want as long as you're first clear on what you want. And then you connect with someone like me and we help you plan strategically to get there.
That's good. I'm going, and I think you're right. A lot of people, high achieving in careers, maybe going through this, but the Balance of Excellence show is mostly geared toward medical professionals. So I'm going to talk from a medical professional, and especially from a physician bent because I am one. Um, I 100% agree with you. And one of the things I always say is it is rare to find a physician who hasn't been gearing toward being a physician for years before, right? I mean years. It could be when they were in single digits or just entered double digit ages. It is rare to find one that hasn't been gearing for years. So when you put everything in that one basket
Come on.
and then you finally reach that, when someone looks at you and says, what do you want? Your brain says, but what I've wanted, I got. Even if you're not excited about it, you might be still excited about it, or you might not be. The point is, what you've been gearing for, what you've been saying you wanted, you got. You never made room to think of anything else.
Ooh.
You never gave energy. You never made room to think of anything else because this took so much energy to build up and to get there. And then as you so aptly pointed out, because I was there in 2017, 2018, there comes a point where you, I know I acknowledged, I knew there was something else that in my gut wanted to do. Did I know what it was? Nope. I knew there was something else out there I was supposed to be doing. And it didn't mean that I was supposed to be doing it in place of medicine. It could be in addition to,
Yes.
but I knew. And I literally said out loud, but I'm too busy and too tired to figure it out. I said
Cognitive
it
safety.
out
Cognitive safety.
loud.
You didn't even have room in your cognitive load to even think about it, to even dream or
No.
envision.
To even think, to even dream, and sadly accepted. I knew some people can't even realize that's the issue. I realize that's the issue. I don't have the 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 time, the energy just to just sit down and figure it out. And it's one of the reasons, like some months ago, at a medical association, I held a workshop called "Create Your Pause"
Yeah.
because you need to create time for yourself. And I don't even mean create your pause to think, but you'd be surprised how your brain starts to
Yes.
realize things when you just create a
Yes.
pause to even rest.
Yes. Yes. Decrease cognitive load.
You know?
Because it's not
And we
just
don't
physical
do
rest,
that
it's
enough.
mental rest.
It is mental rest. We don't do that enough. We don't do that enough. So
Hmm.
I 100% agree with you. It's woo. This was the dream.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
what people don't realize is you can have more than one dream.
Right.
It's okay.
Yeah. I love what
And
you're
it can
talking
be
about.
big.
Yeah, I love that, Dr. Judy, what you're talking about like even just thinking, even considering that don't even, some people don't even consider doing a new thing or an additional thing. Because the one thing, being a physician, they've just been, gunning for it for so long that even once they get there, their mind doesn't even put a new thing in their brain, even if but they may have other passions and things that they enjoy.
Yeah.
The other reason why that becomes the issue is because of identity. When you're spending so much time gunning towards being a physician, you start identifying, putting all of your identity in being a physician. And on top of that,
Yes.
in the United
Yes.
States, I don't know about other parts of the world, but in the US, society puts so much on that identity as well. And then that also prevents you from sometimes even being able to think about other things, other passions, doing new things or additional things, because so much of your identity is wrapped up in your role as a physician. And that was another thing I think of why people would tell me, "Oh my God, you're so brave, you're so brave." I think they were saying that in part, the people who said that to me, because they couldn't fathom someone almost like de-identifying with
Yeah,
the
yes.
prestige of being a physician. But one thing I was blessed with as those latter part of my years when I was working full time was I start um, putting, and let me backtrack a little bit. The identity issue is so deep seated. It's because the identity issue is connected with value. People put value on their identity. And so I started separating my value in those latter years from my different identities that I had in my life, including
Mm.
the identity as a physician. So many people were like, "You're so courageous," but maybe it was because in their mind, a lot of their value was associated with the identity of a
Yeah.
physician, and they could not fathom me de-identifying with that identity, because maybe a lot of they assume my value was associated with that. But one thing that has helped me with balance and being able to take big steps and do new things is I decided to hone in and get a closer understanding of my innate value as a human being, as a child of
Yes.
God. And so that allows me the freedom to do whatever I want to do. because I've detached my value from the different identities and roles that I have.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And here's the thing. And I tell people, even as I talk about balance, I am Dr. Judy Wright. I'm also Judy. I am Judy who's, someone's daughter. I am Judy who is someone's sibling, several someone's sibling. I'm a cousin, I'm a wife, I'm a mom. It took years for my kids to realize I was even a physician. What do you mean?
They're
Like,
like, oh
I'm
my
talking
gosh.
years. To realize that I was even physician because I was just mommy. I'm Judy the friend. I yes, I'm a
Judy,
physician.
the global speaker.
I'm a global speaker. I'm an author. I'm a coach. There's so many things to our identities that, yes, identity is great. It is great,
It just doesn't
but
equal
don't
value,
lock
though.
yourself into one,
It
and
doesn't equal value.
it doesn't equal value. And you don't have to just be one thing. Oh, you said you were this, you can't be something else. Yeah, I love that. And I love how when I moved out of patient care, that was tough for me because of that same thing.
Yeah.
And I moved out, I'm still employed. I just don't do direct care of patients. And it was tough until it wasn't. I'm like I'm so much more than that, and I still feel like I'm doing the population great things. And if I someday am not employed and I'm just doing this, I'm still doing great things for and I'm helping
Yes.
other people because
Yes.
that's innately who I am.
Yes.
I love to serve.
Yeah. Yeah. I was
It's
having a
innately who I am.
conversation with another doctor coach yesterday. Um, and we were talking about the conversation of leaving medicine, leaving emergency medicine. Um, and I think she was saying that she decided just to take a pause, like maybe a month or 2 months. And so people were asking
I love how
her,
people are bringing back the
yes,
sabbatical,
yes,
and I'm loving it.
yes,
Like, people are saying, I'm taking off, and you know what? I
yes,
planned for this. I looked at my stuff, and I can do this for 2 months, 6 months,
exactly.
a year, and come back.
Yes, and that's a whole nother conversation too. But she was saying people she was saying people were asking her, do you miss it? And I was like, I remember people asking me that too, like, do you miss it? And I felt almost bad because when people would ask me that, like, do you miss it? And I was like, I ain't really missed it. But it was because I also was doing calling work. I was so busy pouring into people like you and other high income earners, teaching them the options that they can get through business and real estate, that I, it wasn't like I dislike patient care. I love it. But I also didn't miss it because I was also working in another identity, another calling that I found value in as well.
Right, right, and that's the important part. It still should fill you up, and not everybody is in a career. Some people are in jobs, and not every job or even every career is going to fill you up. It's important to have things that do.
Mhm.
So, like, don't lock yourself into one thing. That's why I say create that pause. Because sometimes when it seems like you're adding something to your list of things that you have to do, it's really not part of the list.
Yeah.
It's the thing that'll fill you. It's
Mm.
the thing that'll give you joy,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it just doesn't feel the same.
Right.
So we're coming close to the end.
Aw.
And because I can speak to you
I mean,
for
yeah, we can talk for hours, Dr. Judy.
right. But I have questions that I normally ask.
Okay.
But before I ask it, because it'll be the last of the questions,
Okay.
for those of you that are still here, thank you so much for still being here. Please like, subscribe, comment, share. You can listen and watch us on YouTube, or listen wherever you listen to your podcasts, even when you're driving. And so do that. Invite people. Come if you haven't liked the shit. What you waiting for, right? And invite your friends. There's so much to learn. And even if you've encountered this and you're not a medical professional, there's always things that you can pick up here and invite people to and learn and apply to your own life. So with that said, Dr. Dayia, I'm going to ask you two last questions. And the first
Okay.
question is, what do you know now that you wish you knew then?
What I know now that I wish I knew years ago was that I have so many options. Nothing is outside of my reach. And that anything I desire, that I can create a realistic plan that will get me there.
Wonderful. Wonderful. And how has your definition of success and excellence evolved over time? Like,
Oh, yeah, that's good.
like, oh,
Yeah, that's good. That's good. It kind of goes back to what we were talking about identity and leaning into being a physician. So, my definition of success has changed definitely over time. If you would have asked me about my definition of success in my teens, 20s, 30s, I'm telling my business now because I am past my 30s. I know y'all are surprised to hear that. But if you would
that's
have
real.
asked me, if you would have asked me about my definition of success in those younger years, I would say, oh, it's me, getting into med school, finishing residency, fellowship, and being a doctor where I'm being promoted up to professor status in an academic institution. Um, Once I had that kind of like shift period of my life where almost like the scales fell off of my eyes and I started leaning into learning more about wealth, Black wealth, the different options, different other streams of income, I realized that I was attracted to a new definition of success. My later definition of success was time freedom and location freedom, and being able to make any decision or a last minute decision, last minute trip. Just freedom became my new definition of success.
It's crazy when you start to realize that sometimes the typical definition of success or the latter does align with your vision. But when you realize sometimes that it doesn't, which
Mm-hmm.
again is okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay if, I think a lot of us is like keep moving up the ladder. And some people want to move halfway up the ladder and stop and be here and serve right here. They want to get off on this floor and they want to serve
Yes,
right here
that's okay.
and do an excellent job. And there's nothing wrong with that, you know. Um, but in this society, it's not typical.
That became
And
me.
being
That
that
was me, Dr. Judy. The latter years in medicine, people were like, "Oh, are you going to the promotion meeting where we can learn how we can get promoted to the next rank?" And I'm like, "No, no, thank you. I'm not concerned about promotion anymore. Didn't care."
mm-hmm. And when you that's a whole different thing. But when you're in academia, it's built in that it's supposed to be that way. So to say, "Oh, I'm good," people are like, "What? What you mean? This is the expectation." you know. So yeah, absolutely. So that Dr. Dayia, I want to give you the floor to just tell people how they can contact you
Sure.
as a coach, a business coach, a real estate coach, a coach. How can people get in touch with Dr. Dayia?
Yeah, so you can always find, especially if you're interested in business or real estate coaching, find me at drdaiya.com, DRDAAIYAH.com. But I spend most of my time on social media, particularly Instagram, and there I'm at my business name at Capital Dynasty, CAPITAL DYNASTY. But I'm also on LinkedIn, Facebook, and I will. It would be me responding to you there, and it's at my name, Dayia Cooper, DAAIYAHCOOPER.
Capital Dynasty has always been a hot name to me.
Thank Thank you.
Like, how do you forget that? Capital
Yeah, I'm all
dynasty.
about building dynasties. Like the people I work with, I call them my dynasty builders. We are all dynasty builders.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Dayia, for coming on. This this has been a joy for me. I love doing the interviews, but to be able to interview with you when I came to you as a client and to be able to get you on and talk about it. And it was a surprise to me, but it was a great surprise because I realized that it was a surprise to me that you are taking some shifts. But that's the name of the game, right? Like it's you do what makes you feel
Yeah.
good when it
Yes.
makes you feel good, and it still could be part of your balance. And I want everybody to know we're not just out here saying you got to leave. We're not just out here saying you got to
Options.
stay. It's about finding what excellence looks like to you and how you can find your balance so that you can be excellent. So thank you so much for being here today, and I really totally appreciate it. Again, everyone, thank you for coming on, and we will see you the next episode. Bye.